Hey there everybody, and welcome back to your new skills lesson for this week. The last couple of weeks we have been working on different forms of striking, and when I talked about that striking with our hand lesson, I had talked that striking with our hands is a skill that we can then translate or move into other sports and other activities, into other skills in those sports and activities. So what we're going to be working on today is going to be the bump in volleyball. The bump in volleyball is one of the most basic skills that you're going to need to be able to play any type of volleyball. Whenever you're watching a volleyball game or a volleyball match, you'll see that's usually what the players use in order to either safely get the ball over the net or to pass from one of their players on their team to the other. And so that is what we're going to be working on today, is going to be using our arms to be able to bump a ball. So what you're going to need for this lesson is going to be a ball. Now what I'm going to use is going to be this big beach ball here. If you have something like this, that works pretty good. If you don't, what I'm going to do is linked under this video. I'm going to either in the description or under this video bring the link to Coach McPherson's how to build a soccer ball video. It uses towels, I believe, and tape and maybe a plastic bag in order to make a soccer ball. That exact same stuff you can use to make a volleyball, because all you really need for this is a ball. So if you make a soccer ball, you can make a volleyball. Now, if you are in a space where you do not have a lot of room above you, or just a lot of room in general to do this activity, I would strongly suggest you do it outside, okay? Because we are gonna be hitting this ball up over our heads. So if you don't have a lot of room around you, you're gonna hit things, and that's not good. So do this outside, and make sure your parents know you're doing this stuff before you do it. So that way, you know, they know that there's a possibility that something might get broken if you're gonna do it inside the house. But if you think you could break something, do it outside. So the first thing that we are gonna cover is going to be the grip. But before we do that, I'm gonna give you a 10 seconds or so. You can pause the video. You can either go down and watch Coach McPherson's video to make your own volleyball, soccer ball, however you wanna call it, or give you a little bit of time to be able to get a ball that you can use. You want a pretty good sized ball. You don't want a small ball like a tennis ball. You want a ball probably about a basketball. If you have a volleyball, that's great, or like a beach ball, something like that that you can use to do this activity. So get it. You're gonna get a couple of seconds to get that right now. Before we do anything else with this activity, I have to show you how to actually hold your hands in order to bump the ball. Now, a lot of people, when they see a volleyball thing, they immediately think that they want to take their hands and interlock their fingers like this, okay? This is not okay. I'll explain why. Your fingers are mostly bone, okay? An actual volleyball is not as soft as you think it would be, okay? It's not as soft as the beach ball that we're going to be using for this. So if you interlock your fingers like this, and then that ball hits those fingers, there is a good chance that you are just going to break every single one of your fingers in your hands. It's not a safe way to do this. So please, if you do not take anything else from this video, is that when you are playing volleyball and you want to bump the ball, do not link your fingers together like this. I do not want to have any broken fingers here. I know that's our first instinct, but that's not what we're going to do here. What we'd rather do instead is going to be a thing I like to call the bird's nest grip. So we're gonna go over the steps of that right now. So the first thing that you're gonna do, you wanna kind of have your feet about shoulder width apart, make them even, okay? And then you wanna take your hands and you're gonna hold them out in front of you as if you are feeling to see if it's raining outside, okay? Trying to catch something. Try to catch some of it right there. What you're gonna do then is you are going to take one hand and you are gonna place it on top of the other like this, okay? Kind of making your bird's nest. Now, this is your bird's nest, so your thumbs are gonna be your little birdies. So everybody look at this. You're gonna make your thumbs be your little birdies in the nest. You're gonna place them in the nest and hold them out just like that. So you're gonna have one hand on top of the other. Try to hope you can see that a little bit better, okay? And then place your thumbs on top of that. Don't lock your thumbs. Same deal with the fingers. If you put one finger on top of the other and it accidentally hits your hand, broken thumb, not good for you. So you want to try to keep them flat as possible. When you do this, you then want to take your arms and hold them straight out, because you are not hitting the ball with your hands, okay? It's not going to give you enough control. You are going to hit it with your forearm. If you don't know what your forearm is, that's the part of your arm that goes from your elbow to your wrist. All right? That is your forearm. So when you do your bird's nest grip, remember, hands feeling out for rain, hand goes on top, birds go in, hold them out nice and flat, and you want the ball, when you land it, to land right there. Okay? So that's why we want our arms to be out as straight as possibly can. You want them to try to kind of be flat. If you turn it like this or turn it like this, you're not going to have as much control. So try to make your arms as flat as possible. Okay? So that is the bird's nest grip. Now we're going to move on to the first part of the bump skill that we are going to go over. All right, so either you have a ball or you've learned how to make it. You've learned the bird's nest grip in order to be able to help you work on that. And so now for this first skill that we're going to do, we're going to help working on trying to get into our bird's nest grip quickly and trying to have the ball land on the correct spot of our body. So how we're going to do that is something that I like to call toss and catch. So what's going to happen is, for this first bit of practice that you're going to have, you're going to hold the ball out in front of you just like this. You're going to toss it just above your head. We're not trying to toss this super high up into the air. So just above your head. And what you're going to do is you are going to catch the ball in that bird's nest grip on your forearms. Okay? We're not catching it like this with our elbows bent or holding up against our head. You want to have your arms as flat as possible whenever you catch it. Okay? And try to catch it up on those forearms. And we're not catching it with our elbows bent like this, trying to catch it this way on our hands. Okay? So all that's going to happen is you're going to toss it up, bird's nest grip, and you're going to catch it and try to keep it on there. If you turn sideways and it falls off, that means you need to straighten your arms out a little bit. This is going to help you practice getting into that bird's nest grip quickly and practice getting the ball landing on the right spot. Little helpful tip for whenever you do your practice. If you keep finding yourself, let's get back so you can see a little bit better. If you keep finding yourself standing here like this and then it keeps bouncing off, don't just stand there with straight arms and hope it's going to land where it's going to land. When you go, give yourself a little bit of a soft landing with those knees bent. That's going to help it stay put. If something lands on it hard, it's just going to bounce off. We're not looking to bounce it just yet. We're just looking to catch it. All right? So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a minute of practice time. I want you to just toss the ball up into the air and try to catch it on your arms, on your forearms, with straight arms as straight as arms as you possibly can. All right? And then if you would like to, I have a couple of things in this next part where you can make it a little bit harder for yourself, or kind of goals or objectives that you can reach as well. Now that you have learned to do the toss up and catch with that bird's nest grip, we're going to move on to some actual practice time right now. So you got some practice time doing that toss and then catching with our forearms part. So now we are going to move on to the actual bump. If you are still kind of caught up on the toss and catching part, go back, practice that, and then once you feel kind of comfortable with it, then you can come back to this part and you're ready to move on. So how this is going to work is going to be the same kind of deal. You're going to toss it just above your head, just like you did before, but this time instead of catching it with our forearms, we are going to bump it. Okay? Now, did I bump that super high up into the air? No, I can't do that because one, I have a ceiling above me that I don't want to hit, and two, because that's not what we're trying to do in this activity. We're trying to get control, not power. So when I bump it, I just want it to bump a little bit higher than my head. Okay? All we're going to do for this one is just going to be called bump and catch. Is this next activity. You are just going to bump it, catch it. The reason why I want to see if you can catch it is because I want to see if you have control. So if you bump it and then you have to run really, really far in order to be able to go catch it, you don't have a lot of control. You should be able to bump and catch and not have to move your feet at all is what I'm looking for. All right? So same thing, toss it up, bird's nest grip, bump it, catch it. And then go again, bump it, catch it. One more time, bump it, catch it. Remember, we're bumping on our forearms, not on our hands. So don't be bending in like this to try to bump it. Arm straight, bump, catch. Okay? So, same deal as the last one. I'm going to give you about a minute for practice. I'll have a couple goals or objectives that you can try to meet. And then we will move on to the next part of today's activity. So now that you've learned the bump and catch technique, we're going to kind of make a little bit of a game out of it. And so this is going to help us move on into the next part of the lesson where it's going to be a little bit more fun that way. But this is an activity that if you were playing a real volleyball game, you would not be allowed to do. You cannot hit a volleyball more than once. You have to have somebody else hit it before you can hit it again. But for the sake of this activity, this is really helpful for practice. So what you're going to do is you're going to start, we're going to be bumping and catching again. But when you bump and then catch, starting off with 1, then next time, because I did that correctly, I'm going to move to 2. Bump, bump, catch. Okay? So since I did 2 correctly, I get to move on to 3. Bump, 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 catch. And then I get to keep doing that and moving on and up and up and up the ladder until I mess up. When you mess up, you start back at 1. So then you go back to bump, catch, and then back to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, as many as you can. You're going to get 1 minute to see how high up the ladder you can get. So starting at 1, going until you mess up. Everybody got that? So the next part of your practice is going to start right now. Last activity that we are going to do has kind of been something that we've been working up towards, especially with that last activity. What you're going to do this time is we're just going to get rid of the catches, okay? So what you're going to try to do in whatever space that you are in, you are going to try to just keep bumping the ball as many times as you can until you mess up, okay? If it hits the ground, pick it back up, start back over. Very simple. Now remember, this is not a skill that you can actually use in a real volleyball game because you're not allowed to hit the ball more than one time in a row. But again, for practice, this makes it very, very, very useful. So again, whenever the timer starts, you're just going to start in your space and you're going to bump the ball just over your head as many times as you can until you mess up. I hit the ceiling there, so I gotta be careful. So if you're ready, this last little bit of practice that you have is going to start right now. So there you go. I really hope that you enjoyed today's lesson. If at any point something got a little bit too difficult for you, just go back to that point and practice that point before moving on to the next one. You don't want to get frustrated with one of the things that was at the beginning of the lesson and then try to then do something that's even harder than that. Get that earlier part done first and then move on to the harder parts. Okay? So remember, today we learned how to do the bump in volleyball, which remember we'd had that bird's nest grip. Just put the hands, one hand on top of the other, put the birds in the nest and arms out straight, okay? Next week, we are gonna learn one more skill whenever it comes to volleyball, and that is going to be the set. So there's a bump, and then there's a set, and then there's a spike, but we're not gonna really cover the spike. That's not something I usually cover in elementary school. That's more of a skill that you'll pick up whenever you go into middle school or into high school. Next week, be ready for the set. We're gonna keep doing that volleyball stuff. And so I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you all next time. Bye!